welcome in to another Civ 6 review style video here at the Badishmoose YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be going through the civilization Rome in Civilization 6. This is a very popular civilization. It's one of the civilizations that people will often suggest as a starter civilization for people. Fun fact. This was my very first time playing Rome after all these years of playing Civ. And the reason that I was playing Rome is because my community challenged me to a particular game, set up the map and the settings for it, and this was the definition of playing Civ 6 Under Duress. A small Pangea map with 9 deity AI on the continent. We actually, I think even with the mods we had, I think we broke it because it ended up being in 2 continents. And apocalypse mode on, no other game modes. It was very challenging as far as just the settings were concerned. Plus throw in no game modes to help or save you from the DDAI. You've got 9 of them, plus yourself, packed into a small Pangea map, or at least what turned out to be obviously still a very small map, and playing a Civ that I had not played before, plus apocalypse mode. It was a challenging game. I will tell you, I had a fantastic game, and why I had a fantastic game? Primarily, Rome. Let's jump in and take a look at what happened in this game. Apocalypse mode took its toll on us. Let's go through that first, and then we'll talk Rome. This is, or I guess I should say, was Rome. This tile right here. This was Rome. It's not there no more. It's not there no more. It is turn 242. Turn 242, and you'll want to track the turns very carefully here. So, turn 242, and we had the turn prior to this. I think this was the one that fell on this turn. The turn prior to this, so turn 241, I believe it was. This happened. To get our no! Obviously, not great to have your capital city, not just your capital city, our Ruhr city, Ruhr Valley, sat right here on this space, right here. You can see the hills that we had access to. Our best campus also sat right here, or one of our best campuses. We lost a ton of science. We lost a ton of production. Conveniently, we had already launched our Mars colony. We had already launched our final space mission. It was just it was a timing thing at that point. So mere turns after having launched our final space project, a comet strikes Rome and destroys our best city and what was going to drive all of our production towards a nice early win. I was thinking maybe we get to sub 250 this. Under these conditions, with this many deity level AI on the map and all the modes that we were playing, I thought that was gonna be pretty good. Like sub 250 under those conditions felt relatively good. I don't usually play for fast games necessarily, but I felt like we had done well in this one. You can see some of our stats, and knowing we just lost our best science city. We're at 848 science, 322 culture at this point in the game. Again, turn 242. Not crazy numbers, but keep in mind, there was one other thing. There was one other thing that chat did to me in this game. No city-states. 0 city-states. Now take a look at the numbers, because none of the cards that you can put in that give you those huge boosts to your science and culture because of suzerains you have, or trade routes you have, or any of those things going to city-states, none of that happened. There were no city-states in this game. 9 DDAI, no city-states, apocalypse mode, no other modes, playing Rome for the first time. It was an interesting experience. I'm going to walk you through that game, but I want to take you through our experience, specifically our experience with apocalypse mode. Now, I may have leaned into the pollution part of it, maybe for the memes, after I realized kind of we were going to need to push it. So you'll notice that in almost every one of our cities, we've got industrial hubs planted down. You almost never plant this many industrial zones. There's some really nice zones down here. We got a +10 here. We've got a +8 here. So we've got some really nice kind of stuff that we put together. Our ones up here are also really good. Here's a +8 as well. Here's a 10 again. So that's some big industrial zones that we ended up placing down. And we got industrial zones in almost all of our cities. That was, again, maybe for the beams so that I could get meteors coming down towards the end before we won, once I figured out that we were doing pretty well. That turned into probably one of the most ridiculous 9 turns of Civilization that I have ever played. It's turn 242 right now. On turn 241, or right in that time frame, our capital city got destroyed by a falling meteor. A meteor strike destroys our best city. On turn 242, we sit at this place. Now, let's fast forward to when we actually ended up winning this game, and let's take a look at what my empire actually ended up looking like. Here's where we are now. We have plenty of cities. You notice all the trade routes here. That's because they were all in Rome. They all got reset to what ended up being our new capital. I believe we made this our new capital. I can't remember. We moved our capital around a couple different times at this point. So, or it got, I don't remember where our capital got sent, to be honest. It got sent somewhere. Oh, Halep is actually our capital right now. There, right there. Perfect. So I think it was our biggest city at the time. That was a city that actually got taken over by just sheer loyalty pressure. All of these cities here, this one, this one, this one, this one, all of those were just loyalty pressure takes after we got the game rolling. So feels pretty good to have that. But our beautiful empire spans, you can see the mini-map down here, a large chunk of the land. We made some really good progress. I'll walk you through a little bit of that progress as we jump into kind of the end point here. But let's take a look at what a mere, I believe it's less than 10 turns later, our empire looks like. Here we are. Less than 10 turns later. 9 turns after this. The game is won. We have won. We pulled through a victory in under these most egregious of circumstances. Playing Civ 6 in the community challenge game with all of those settings. Apocalypse mode has officially done its worst to us. In the span of 10 turns, our capital, as you already know, smashed by a meteor. Our second city that we formed, smashed by a meteor. Our third city that we formed, smashed by a meteor. 1, 2, 3. I believe we put locust mode down after that. Our 5th city that we placed, boom, smashed by a meteor. And then yet another meteor strike. In 10 turns, we lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cities. You can look at the mini-map. My once mighty empire completely cut in two after 5 cities in 10 turns took meteor strikes. And not only did we take 5 meteor strikes in those amount of turns, it was our biggest and best cities that we had built from the ground up from early on in the game. These were not late settles. These were our biggest, best, most productive cities. We lost almost all of our spaceports. Thank goodness we had sent up enough like space missions and things. It was getting very dicey towards the end. We were ahead in like a million different ways, so it didn't particularly matter. But we got slowed down a drastic amount. I didn't get to sub 250. We actually ended the game. Of course, this is a save later, a one more turn later save file. So we did, again, we won the game at the end of turn 250. Or I guess at the start of turn 251. I don't really remember how that works as far as like timing is concerned. But We didn't get the sub 250 win, and I blame the meteors. I blame the meteors. I mean, this is... I had not played... So I had played once before. I hadn't played extensively in Apocalypse mode. This was ridiculous. Meteor after meteor striking my cities and destroying everything. And these were direct hits on our city centers, wiping out everything. Our Petra city, gone. Our Ruhr Valley city and our capital, gone. Our marvelous city centered around this volcano and all of its glory, gone. I mean, just a decimated land. And you can see other things broken. All of our campuses are currently broken, I think, because of one of those, the solar flare things. Apocalypse mode is a whole thing. So let's walk through from this point in the game. Let's walk back and see how did we pull off a win under these circumstances. It has a lot to do with a couple of very important things. And that really has to do with map placement and the fact that we were playing Rome. So we were playing Rome, and there's a couple things that I want to talk about as we start to play Rome. But one of the things let's talk about really quickly is map placement. We started here, right? And it was a gorgeous start. It was full of trees, so we had a lot of chops. Chops are something that's very good as Rome, and we'll talk about why that is in a second. And we also had this nice mountain range here and a nice mountain range here that came down all the way through here that created some really nice choke points for us to have a settleable land. Now, there was a big desert in the middle of it, but we were able to avoid a lot of military confrontations with anyone outside of our little area for a while. And that's important at the start of a DD game, especially when you're playing with no game modes and especially when you're playing with so many cramped onto a small map. Now, we did have one person that had quick access to us, and we both ended up settling aggressively towards each other. So right down here, you can see the city name is Jakarta, and you can see all of, at least some of these cities are of the Indonesian persuasion. So Jatarja was directly south of us and had settled initially here and worked her way out into some of these areas. So what happened is we were here playing Rome, and we were looking for an early war into a science victory. We saw kind of what we had as far as some really good mountains. We had some geothermals around and different things like that, and so we saw the opportunity for a science victory. But we wanted to use the Roman legions to push into an early war, legion rush a little bit. I didn't pull it off quite right, and you'll see why. And then use that to catapult into a science victory. Here's what happened. You'll notice here, there is iron right here. One thing that is necessary for legions is iron. You have to have it in order to build legions. We started here, and I didn't go north of this mountain range because I didn't really want to meet anyone up here right away for fear of, you know, military retaliation. So I did not explore up. I explored south. We explored down. We found Egypt, we found Jatarja, and what we did not find was iron. We thought at one point that we were not going to have iron in this game available to us. The nearest iron was, I believe, oh, it's somewhere down here. It might be, I don't know if it's destroyed because of meteors or something like that. Oh, right here. This iron, right behind my head, right here, was the iron that we had identified once we got down to the south that we needed to go take, which is why we had started settling aggressively in this direction. But obviously, Indonesia was much closer to it than we were. They settled the city, and I believe it was actually, I can't remember which city it was that they settled. I think it was this one that actually took the iron. So they got the iron from us before we could get down there. And we thought all was lost because we were not going to be able to execute a legion rush. We were, in fact, not going to be able to execute anything because the nearest horses to us were way over here. Those are the closest horses to where we started. So we had some major strategic resource problems to open the game, and everything was going splendidly. We had lots of good things going for us, but we were going to miss out on our legion rush. We ended up going north, and then thank goodness we found this iron. We settled 10 Circle City, and we were able to snag iron, build it up, and get the legions going. Why are legions so critical to a Roman strategy? Well, let's take a quick look at the legion. Roman unique classical era melee unit that replaces swordsman. can build a Roman fort. What it doesn't tell you right here is that in addition to being able to build a Roman fort, the Legion comes with either they can build the fort or they can chop something. They can execute a chop. And so what you can do is you can build a Legion, then you save chops in your city, put Magnus in that city to increase your chop production, right? Chop with your Legion into another Legion unit. It will almost fully build your second and third Legion unit or somewhere around that through the chops alone. And then every Legion unit that you chop out in your city then can do the next chop to get the next Legion unit out. So you can really build a very vast array of these Legions very quickly. They replace the Swordsman. They're an excellent unit. Do I have a Legion? Yeah, I have a Legion just sitting right here. So here's a Legion unit. They had no chops left on this particular unit, so I can't show you that. I thought there was one I had left. I think he was in one of the cities that got blown up, unfortunately. But the Legion is an excellent unit based on that fact that they can chop themselves out. They're better than a Swordsman, so you can get them out really quickly and make some really fast moves. The best part is you get a lot of them relatively quickly using that chop mechanism. And so that was the goal that we were trying to accomplish, is chop out a bunch of Legions. This rush happened slightly late because we were waiting on iron for quite some time while we didn't know that we had access to it. But even with the slightly late rush, we were able to send, I don't remember how many Legions we chopped out. It was like 6 or 7 or something like that, that we had like chops that we had saved in our capital for this. And we sent our 6 or 7 Legions along with some, at that point, I believe they were crossbowmen, down into the Indonesian land, and we pretty much took them out very quickly. We had a little bit of trouble on the capital. They ended up getting some walls in and some stuff built, and so once we got down there, we had a slight stall in the war. But at that point, it was all but over. We just needed to take the capital and this city. They had 2 left. This city eventually just fell due to loyalty pressure when we took the capital. So we were able to push down, snag all the land we needed, ended up with a ton of cities, -5 at the end. But we had a lot. And then what we did here is we just settled a couple cities up here. Really, we just settled this one. And the rest of these cities came via the loyalty pressure mechanism. So we actually had such a good game that we loyalty took some of the biggest cities in the game that were available to us. Our biggest city after our capital actually ended up being a city we took on loyalty pressure, which was pretty cool. The map also helped us in that we did not have floodplains we were settling on. We did end up with some down here. So the big dust storms, the haboobs, were the biggest thing we had to deal with. And then we had a couple of volcanoes in our land. We were able to settle kind of off those volcanoes so that the actual pressure of having the apocalypse mode on and volcanoes exploding all the time was lessened on us. So we were able to do that. The other benefit that the map provided us with is there were quite a few mountains and some nice rivers running through our land. One of the other things that Rome gets you is the bath, their unique building. It's a unique building for Rome. It replaces the aqueduct and it's cheaper to build. It's quite a bit cheaper to build, so it's nice to put these in, and you want every Roman city to have one if at all possible. The first part of the text there under bath basically just describes an aqueduct, so it's an aqueduct replacement. And then, in all cases, the bath provides an additional bonus of +2 housing, growth factor gets increased there, and an amenity. You get an amenity every time you build a bath in one of your cities. That keeps the Roman populace very happy, which is hugely beneficial. So without having to really think about amenities too much, you're going to have a highly happy, or at least, appeased population through the amenities you're getting from your bath and the housing that you're going to get from just the baseline fact that the bath is an aqueduct, but then you get the +2 housing on top of that is really nice. So you get the bath, which is something there's some games where you might not be building a lot of aqueducts necessarily, but most games you're going to build aqueducts when you can, especially if you're not on fresh water, or even if you are, you're often looking for that extra housing bonus that you're going to get from that. And the beauty of the Roman bath is you're going to get extra housing on top of that, plus the amenity. It's a uniquely powerful building that you just don't think about very much. So it doesn't feel really cool, but it does have really cool effects. And that, for me, kind of starts to describe Rome in a real kind of decent way. It doesn't seem cool, but the benefits of Trajan and the benefits of Rome are actually really, really good on the game. Let's take, for example, Trajan's Column. All cities start with an additional city center building. Basically, if you're playing a regular game of Civ, all buildings are going to start with a monument. This is huge early game, because every city you settle, you don't have to put the turns into building a monument to get that culture. The culture immediately that you get, even though it's a small amount, from a monument being free in your cities without even have to think about it. It takes that out of the game entirely. So in our game, we were able to just say, hey, we're going for a science victory. We didn't have to do almost anything to keep up culturally, because it just naturally happened over time as we just ended up with so many cities that had monuments, especially early game, that our culture was able to pace everyone else's, not solely obviously because of monuments, but early game, we really didn't have to think about it very much because we were already getting those monuments in every city. It was pushing our culture early, so we weren't falling so far behind like you typically would, especially at the DD level in Civ 6. So that monument ability is really fantastic. Super simple ability, very, very helpful. The other and final Rome ability is all roads lead to Rome. All cities you found or conquer start with a trading post. If a trade route in range of your is in range of your capital, they also start with a road to it. Your trade routes earn +1 gold for passing through trading posts in your own cities. There's a lot there. But the baseline two things to look at here is you get a trading post right away. And the reason that's important is it extends your ability to trade, but really what it does is it gets you to that last sentence, which is your trade routes earn +1 gold for passing through trade posts in your own cities. Basically, you get those trade routes sent out early to all of the different cities you create in your empire that are within range of your capital. You get the roads, which we'll talk about in a second, but you're also going to then get the ability to send a trade route from the far south of your empire or whatever takes you through the most different trade posts to the far north of your empire, and you start raking in a lot of gold actually based off of that. Because every city that you have that you've sent a trade route to is going to have those trading posts. It's going to have them right away, and now all of a sudden you've got roads that are built instantaneously that you're headed out on. The roads being built instantaneously is another thing I want to talk about. I mean, you can see just how extensive from our capital, right? That was right here. The road system is absolutely wild going out to our different cities. The reason that this is important is because movement, particularly for settlers early on, if you're training your settlers out of your capital, maybe your second city, if you've got those roads getting placed down as you're going from city to city, that's going to be hugely beneficial, right? It's going to increase your settle movement, so you're going to be able to settle faster. Being able to move builders around even a turn or two faster to get better improvements online or access to resources earlier because your builders can move a little faster, huge. When you execute your legion rush and you're building all of your legions out of a capital city in the north and you're sending them down to fight a war in the south, there are roads that are already in place that you're sending your legions down, and so you can get the war started multiple turns faster, and all of those things really matter in high deity level Civ 6 single player gameplay. Those turns really do make a difference, and so being able to move your settlers faster, being able to move your builders faster, being able to move your armies faster on those roads make a huge difference. My final thoughts on Rome are this. Fantastic civilization, very fun to play, beginner friendly, but also they're I wouldn't say, like, as an experienced Civ player, like, why would you shy away from playing Rome? It seems like maybe basic to be able to execute on some of these things. It makes the game really fun when you don't have to think about a couple things, like trade routes and where you're going to send them is like pretty much predetermined for you, right? And so when you get that, like those, any city within trade route range of your capital, it's like they start with a road. You just like get roads right away. Your movement is like it just extrapolated in early game. The Legion Rush is incredibly fun to execute on to wage an early war into whatever other victory type you want to consider doing. You could go straight Dom if you wanted to as well, and just take those legions all as far as you could go, and then take maybe a pause and then head into a more modern war after that. But the Legion Rush was really fun to execute on. You got a lot of base game opportunities just from the standpoint of the monuments and different things like that. And then you could really pursue any victory type you want because you could go more culturally, take advantage of the fact that you have free monuments. Map lends you towards science. Great. You don't have to think about your culture because you're going to be getting that in droves from your early game monuments. It's really fun to play as Rome. I would highly encourage it if that's something you're interested in. Rome is good. Again, if you're new to the game, try Rome. If you've been playing the game for a long time like me and hadn't really thought to try Rome yet, try Rome because it was a lot of fun. The other thing that I want to bring to conclusion with this particular video is Apocalypse Mode is wild. It's not something that I would do all the time, and especially I would not play under these circumstances on a small map with this many AI just crammed in to a small Pangea and trying to fight your way through it. It was a fun experience. It was interesting, but man, when we got to that final level of climate change or the world climate, right? When we got up to level phase 7 here, it was wild. We had this city up here, Nine Circle City. This tile here, and actually this tile here, where this harbor is, these were not coast tiles. These got flooded at some point, or these got flooded. I can't remember what exactly happened in this city. This city ended up on a peninsula by the end of the game. It was really interesting how that happened. We got a bunch of floods that happened. I think we ended up at some point placing down I can't even remember, this city ended up being able to, I think this tile flooded. I don't even remember anymore. Something happened in this city and we had a lot of flooding that happened. So there was a lot of really interesting things that happened through over the course of the game because of Apocalypse Mode. So you want to challenge a little something different. Apocalypse Mode was a lot of fun. I have never seen something in 10 turns, 5 of my best cities being just obliterated by the meteor. So if you want to punish yourself, have your community challenge you to a challenge that puts you in, really dubious circumstances and then execute on that as best you can. I had a lot of fun even throughout that playing Rome. You can see, though, look at our numbers. Look at our science. That previously it was almost 900? That was after Rome was destroyed. Once our 5 cities are gone, we're down to 300 science per turn on the back of our big cities being destroyed. So you can really take a hit when you get into that level 7 world climate on Apocalypse Mode. It was a lot of fun to play. I probably wouldn't do that particular part of it again, but it was definitely good for a laugh, and watching my empire crumble, I'm sure, was a joy for a lot of people in the community. So that is my thoughts on Rome and on being challenged to run Apocalypse Mode and do some crazy things. The no city-states, I'll tell you this right now, as a concluding thought here, the no city-states on the map made the game incredibly difficult. All of your green policy cards, your diplomatic policy cards, basically become useless. There's a couple of them later in the game you can start throwing in. All the envoys you're getting are completely useless. There's so many, there's wonders that are entirely useless just because they really only do things for when you're a suzerain or when you have envoys being sent. No access to the big policy cards that boost your science and your culture by huge numbers towards the end of the game. No city-states was very challenging to play on. None of the bonuses, none of those baseline bonuses that come from city-states. So that's another one. You could even just do that as a challenge. It's just no city-states in your game. How does that affect your gameplay and what you're going to do? And you're used to certain numbers coming up. You're used to certain policy cards coming up. And when you can't do that, this guy makes it very interesting to play the game. So again, Rome, a lot of fun. I would encourage people to play Rome. I had a blast with this challenge. The community comes up with some fun things for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. More Civ 6 content to come on the channel, as well as Humankind content. Stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.